it was just a glance. But I've lived enough years, seen enough broken marriages and smiling liars to know when something sacred is slipping through cracks no one else wants to see. That night at my daughter Lily's birthday dinner, I watched her husband Jason give a fleeting smile not to her, but to a woman I'd never met before. Elegant, a little too polished for this crowd seated at the far end of the table near Jason's colleague. The glance lasted a second too long. The way she returned it, slightly amused, slightly territorial, made the hairs on my neck rise. I didn't say anything. That's not what mothers do at birthday dinners. Instead, I chewed the inside of my cheek and poured myself another glass of water. The party was at Lily and Jason's home, a clean, modern suburban house with cream walls and a navy blue sectional that always looked like it belonged in a magazine rather than a real family's living room. Their two little boys played in the den, shrieking with toy helicopters and sugar highs. Lily looked radiant, but tired. Her laughter felt like something she practiced in the mirror. I watched Jason all evening, not in a paranoid way, but the way a retired school principal watches a new teacher in her first week. You let them act naturally. That's when the real behavior shows. Jason was charming, attentive to the guests, even held Lily's waist once or twice, but only when people were watching. When no one was looking, his hands were in his pockets. Or on his phone. That same woman, the one he'd smiled at, caught my eye later in the kitchen. I smiled politely. She smiled back. Her lipstick didn't smudge on her wine glass. Her nails were professionally done. And when she leaned over to grab a paper towel, I caught a whiff of something expensive and heady. Oud, maybe? Definitely not a scent you wear casually. By the time the night ended, my daughter was glowing from the wine, chatting with old college friends and thanking everyone for coming. I stayed behind to help clean up. Jason disappeared upstairs, claiming he needed to take a quick work call. He didn't return for half an hour. I asked Lily, "Who was that brunette in the emerald dress, the one sitting near Jason's side of the table?" She looked up casual. "Oh, her. That's Vanessa, one of the wives of his new client. I think Jason met her once at a conference." Her answer felt practiced, not because she was lying, but because someone had rehearsed it for her. "Pretty girl," I said lightly. Very confident. Lily smiled, slightly puzzled. "I guess so." Didn't really talk to her much. Later that night, alone in my room, I stared at the ceiling and tried to talk myself out of it. After all, suspicion is a nasty seed. It doesn't need water. It grows in silence. Maybe I was being too watchful. Too motherly. But something about Jason's body language stuck with me. I remembered watching a parent-teacher conference years ago when a father smiled too much, tried too hard to impress everyone, and 3 months later we discovered he'd embezzled money from the PTA fund. I learned then when people want you to see one thing, it's often because they're hiding another. And Jason, for all his charisma, was hiding something. A week passed. I didn't mention anything. I didn't call Lily or pry into her marriage. That's not my way. But I kept turning that moment over in my mind again and again. The look, the perfume, the way Jason vanished during his wife's birthday party. The second moment came unexpectedly. I was at Lily's house again, helping her sort out the kids' old toys for donation. Jason was working late. Again. Lily seemed distracted, distant. I offered to start a load of laundry while she prepared dinner. She handed me a few things and went back to chopping vegetables. That's when I found it. A scarf, deep green silk floral print draped over the back of the laundry room chair. It didn't belong to Lily. I know her wardrobe, and she's allergic to silk. When I picked it up, it released that same expensive scent. I remembered, the one from the birthday party. Vanessa. I held it in my hand, not sure what to do with it. My heart pounded, not from fear but from the weight of possibility. There it was, soft, fragrant, and completely out of place. I didn't confront Lily. Not yet. Instead, I tucked the scarf into a side drawer in their guest room, the one where I sometimes slept when babysitting overnight. I wanted to see if it would disappear. 3 days later, it was gone. I asked nothing, said nothing. But inside me, something had begun to shift, not just suspicion, but a quiet dread that told me this was bigger than a casual flirtation or a fleeting attraction. This was the beginning of something breaking. And I was the only one who could hear the first crack. It's strange how secrets begin to hum even when no one's saying anything. They hum through phone lines, through locked doors, through the silence between two people sitting on the same couch, staring at the same television, pretending they're still connected. That's how it started to feel around Jason and Lily. The hum, subtle, but always there. I began spending more time at their house not out of nosiness, but because Lily started calling more often. "Hey mom, want to come over and help me with the boys?" Or "Jason's working late again. Maybe we can cook together like we used to." I said yes every time. Because I knew. Even if she didn't know she knew. I knew she was starting to feel it too. One Thursday afternoon, I arrived unannounced. I was in the neighborhood after a dental appointment, and thought I'd bring over some of Lily's favorite scones from that little French bakery near Main Street. I knocked. No answer. The car was in the driveway. I used my key. Inside the house was too quiet. The kids were at school. I called out Lily. A moment later, she stepped out from the hallway, startled. Her eyes were glassy, like she'd just finished crying but had wiped it away quickly. Her makeup was smeared ever so slightly beneath one eyelid. A detail she would have fixed if she'd had more time. "I didn't know you were coming." I lifted the bakery bag and smiled. "Scone delivery. Thought you could use a sugar rush." She blinked and smiled, then turned away too fast. "You didn't have to." She busied herself in the kitchen putting on tea. But I watched the way her hands shook slightly as she opened the cabinet. The way she tried to act like everything was completely fine. I sat down and waited for her to say something. She didn't. "Jason working late again?" I asked, voice casual. She hesitated a beat too long. "Yeah. Big client presentation this week. He's barely sleeping." I took a slow sip of my tea. "Did he like the scarf you got him?" Lily turned slightly. "Scarf. The green silk one. The one that smelled like jasmine." She looked confused, and not in the way someone pretends to be confused. Her eyes narrowed, her lips parted. "I didn't get him a scarf." I smiled gently. "Oh, must have been something I saw in the laundry. Probably mixed up with your stuff." She said nothing. But I saw it the moment something shifted in her. A thought. A question. A memory, maybe. She quickly changed the subject. "Do you remember that lasagna you used to make when I was little?" I nodded, letting her redirect. Because that's what women do when their walls begin to crack. They start cooking something warm, something nostalgic. Something that reminds them of who they were before they started doubting their entire life. Later that night, after dinner, I sat in the den while Lily gave the boys a bath. Jason hadn't come home. Again. That's when I heard her in the hallway whispering on the phone. Not loud enough for words. Just soft, shaky murmurs. But then, one phrase came through clearly: "I can't lose everything, Jason." Jason. So he wasn't working. He was somewhere else. Talking to her like she was the burden, and she was hanging on by threads. When she came back into the room, I didn't let on. I helped get the boys into pajamas, tucked them in, kissed their foreheads. But when I said goodnight to Lily, I looked into her eyes and gently touched her arm. "You don't have to carry it all alone." She smiled weakly, almost grateful, but she didn't answer. The next morning, I returned with groceries and found the door already unlocked. Inside the house was empty. No one had told me they were leaving, but something on the kitchen table caught my eye, a torn piece of paper crumpled at the edge. I picked it up. It was a receipt. From a restaurant downtown. 2 entrees, 2 cocktails, candlelight dining. The timestamp: Lily had been home with me and the boys that night. Jason had claimed he was in meetings until late. The name on the reservation, Vanessa M. I stared at the paper, feeling my stomach drop. This wasn't just a glance anymore. It was happening. And it was happening in plain sight. But what struck me wasn't just Jason's betrayal. It was how careful he was. How deliberate. The receipt was folded, not thrown out, as if he meant for it to be found, but not by Lily. Maybe by me. Maybe he thought I'd confront him. Maybe he wanted a fight. But I wasn't going to give him that. Because I know how people like him operate. They thrive in noise, in chaos. So I decided to go silent. Not because I was afraid, but because silence gives you time to think, time to plan, time to expose someone on your terms. There are objects that feel like accidents, and then there are objects that scream intent. The scarf had been the first, the receipt the second. The third came quietly, like it had always belonged. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I found it. Lily had asked me to pick up the boys from school because she had a late doctor's appointment. She looked exhausted when she handed over the car keys, eyes red-rimmed, lips dry from overbiting. Still, she smiled. Still, she told me not to worry. I took the boys home, helped them with their spelling words, started boiling pasta. The house had grown familiar to me in this quiet season of watching. I moved through it like it was mine, careful not to disturb, careful to notice everything. While grabbing a clean towel from the linen closet near the guest bathroom, I saw something that didn't belong. A small clutch purse. Black leather. Very expensive. Hidden behind a stack of towels that had clearly been shifted recently. It was too stylish to be Lily's. Too modern. Too performative. I opened it. Inside were two things. A lipstick, blood red, not Lily's shade, and a folded note with only a phone number and the name V. Not Vanessa. Just V. It could have been innocent. It could have. But I knew that perfume. That handwriting wasn't Lily's. And the towels in that closet had been my domain for months. Lily never touched them. I put it back exactly where I found it. But I didn't feel like a mother anymore. I felt like a detective. That evening, Jason walked in while I was reading to the boys. The moment he saw me, something flickered in his face. Not surprise, not irritation, but something closer to calculation. As though he needed to recalibrate himself because I wasn't supposed to be there. He kissed the boys' heads, told them he had a client dinner, brushed past me with a tight smile. I watched him go upstairs. I waited 10 minutes. Then I followed. I didn't creep. I didn't pretend. I walked like I had a purpose, because in truth I did. His office door was cracked open. I heard him speaking low and intimate. "Yeah, I miss you too." "No, she doesn't know. Of course not. She'd fall apart if she ever found out." A pause. Laughter. Soft and cruel. Then, "It's just not the right time. Let me handle it my way." He must have heard me outside the door, or maybe sensed something. He opened it suddenly. Our eyes locked. I tilted my head and smiled faintly. "Dinner's ready." He stared at me, jaw slightly clenched. "Thanks. I'm not hungry." "Shame," I said. "Lily made your favorite." He shut the door behind me without another word, and in that moment I saw him for what he really was. Not a man in conflict, not a husband making a mistake, but a strategist. A man who thought he could orchestrate every piece, every emotion, every perception, including mine. The next morning, Lily looked unusually tense. Her eyes darted, her voice cracked when she tried to laugh. I gently asked if everything was okay. She nodded. "Too fast." "He's just stressed," she said. "Things are hard at work. It'll pass." And then, for the first time since this all began, she asked me something she never had before. "Do you think I've changed, Mom?" I froze for a breath. "In what way? Like, do I seem like myself? Do I still laugh like I used to?" Her voice broke then. "Just a little. But enough." I put my arms around her, held her for a long time. She whispered, "I feel like I'm always walking around a minefield, like I'm waiting for something to explode." I didn't speak right away, because I knew what that meant. I'd seen women like that when I worked in education, wives who showed up with bruises you couldn't see, whose children carried silent sadness in their backpacks. Women who clung to routine because they couldn't trust anything else. I had always wondered what I'd do if it happened to my daughter. Now I knew. I'd stay. I'd watch. I'd prepare. Because sometimes the best way to love someone is to believe them before they even know they need to be believed. That night, Jason didn't come home. He sent a text. "Stuck at the office. Don't wait up." Lily stared at the screen for a long time. Then she locked it, set it face down, and climbed into bed with the boys. I stayed downstairs watching the shadows stretch across the living room walls, and that's when I heard it. The soft buzz of a phone, from Jason's coat pocket tossed carelessly on the chair. It was vibrating, repeatedly. I didn't move at first, but the name flashing on the screen, V, not Vanessa, not a client, just V. I picked up the phone. The message preview read, "Did you tell her yet? We can't keep hiding." I put the phone back and sat in the dark, the words echoing. He didn't just have an affair. He had a plan. And it didn't include my daughter. Some betrayals aren't loud. They don't slam doors or shout curses. Some betrayals happen in silence, in absences, in subtle omissions. Jason missed Lily's birthday dinner. The real one, not the party, not the curated event for friends and colleagues. I mean the actual day she was born, the one her heart remembered. It was a Sunday. Her favorite kind of day. The kind she used to fill with warm bread, sleepy boys, and board games on the rug. She loved small birthdays, a cupcake at breakfast, cards tucked under her pillow, a bottle of wine at night. But Jason was called away for a last-minute work dinner with clients. He texted at 3 p.m., "I'll make it up to you. We'll celebrate later this week." No happy birthday, no heart emoji, no call. Just the kind of message a person sends when they've mentally moved somewhere else. And yet Lily, she still wore the earrings he bought her last year. She still lit candles on her tiny vanilla cake, helped her son sing, off-key, laughed too loudly when I teased her about turning 36. I saw it in her eyes, that fragile flicker of hope, that maybe this was just a phase, that maybe Jason would make it up to her, that he'd walk in at 10 p.m. with a bouquet and guilt in his eyes. He didn't. I offered to stay the night. She told me she was fine. I left. But I didn't go far. I waited in my car down the street. Something inside me said this night would tell me what I needed to know. At 10:42 p.m. a car pulled up. Jason stepped out. But he wasn't alone. She was with him. Vanessa. Still in that emerald green coat. Still radiant. Still untouched by guilt. They didn't kiss. They didn't even hold hands. But they lingered too long by the car, heads tilted close, voices hushed. Then Jason walked into the house. Alone. I took a picture. Not to prove anything, not yet. I wasn't ready to break Lily's heart with evidence, but I needed to mark the moment. For myself. For the future. The next morning, I came by early with cinnamon rolls and soft lies. "Just thought I'd surprise you," I said brightly. Jason wasn't in the kitchen. "Still asleep?" I asked. Lily shook her head. "Already gone. Left before the boys woke up." Of course he had. He was good at that, being gone. She poured coffee and sat across from me, barely touching her cinnamon roll. I could feel her trying to ask me something buried deep in her silence. But she wasn't ready to say it, and I wouldn't force her. Instead, I said, "Do you remember when you were a little girl and your goldfish died?" She blinked. "What? You flushed it. And you cried all day, but not because the fish was dead. You told me it was because nobody warned you it would happen." She looked at me, suddenly still. Sometimes the hardest part I continued is realizing something was dying long before we noticed, but we pretended it was fine because it still moved. Lily's eyes filled and she looked away. I didn't press further. That wasn't my role, not yet. But I saw her face shift that morning. She didn't say she suspected anything. She didn't accuse him. But she started watching. Later that week, I was picking up the boys from school when one of their teachers, a kind woman named Dana, pulled me aside. She lowered her voice and said, "I probably shouldn't be saying anything, but I thought you should know. One of the other moms mentioned seeing Jason out with a woman who wasn't Lily. She said it's happened more than once." I didn't react. Just nodded politely. But inside I felt something harden. This wasn't just a private failing anymore. It was becoming public. And Lily. She was the last one to know. That night, Jason returned home unusually early. He brought flowers. Lily's favorite stargazer lilies. She smiled, a little too surprised, thanked him, kissed his cheek. And then, as they stood in the kitchen, I watched something chilling unfold. Jason leaned in close, whispering something in her ear. Her face froze. Whatever he said, it wasn't sweet. She nodded slowly and said nothing. I waited until he went upstairs. "What did he say?" I asked gently. She shook her head. "It's nothing." But her hands were trembling. She turned away and began washing dishes that weren't even dirty. I didn't press. But I knew something had shifted in Jason too. He wasn't just cheating now. He was manipulating, controlling, calculating what she saw, what she felt, even how much hope she was allowed to carry. And I knew. If I didn't act soon, he'd take everything from her. You'd be surprised how much truth you can uncover just by sitting still and watching. I didn't follow Jason at first. That wasn't my style. But something about the way Lily was shrinking more each day, the way her eyes stopped meeting mine, the way she lingered too long in the pantry just to be alone, made me realize I didn't have time to wait for the truth to show up politely. So one Wednesday afternoon, I borrowed my neighbor's car. It's easier to tail someone when you're not in your own car, and besides, Jason knew my blue Toyota too well. This one was beige and forgettable perfect. I knew his schedule better than he realized. He always left for a late client lunch on Wednesdays. Always dressed a little sharper, always used cologne. Lily never liked. I parked across from his office building behind a row of camellia bushes and waited. At 12:16 p.m., he walked out, phone in hand, coat swinging behind him like he was starring in some slick commercial. And there she was. Vanessa. Same green coat. Same impossible grace. Her heels didn't even wobble on the sidewalk. They didn't kiss. They didn't need to. He placed his hand on her back gently, confidently, and guided her into a black car waiting at the curb. I followed. Not close. Just enough to keep them in view. They stopped at a cafe. Not a dark restaurant or hotel. A sunny little place in the heart of town with glass walls and vintage chairs. Public enough to look innocent. Private enough to mean something. I didn't go in. I parked across the street and waited. And when they came out 42 minutes later, he held the door for her and laughed at something she said. Not the fake laugh he gives Lily, the one where his eyes stay cold. This one was real, free, unburdened. He was in love with her, or at least with the freedom she represented. They walked down the street together. He touched her hand once. She didn't flinch. I lifted my phone and took a picture. A clear one, not blurry or rushed. I wasn't collecting gossip. I was collecting ammunition. When I got home, I sat in the guest room and stared at that photo. I zoomed in. Jason's expression was so open, so light, it made my stomach churn. And then I noticed something else. In her other hand, Vanessa was holding a key. A small silver key with a bright red tag. A rental key. It confirmed what I already feared. This wasn't a passing affair. This was an alternate life. I didn't tell Lily that night. Or the next. She was too fragile. Jason was too calculating. I needed more. And I needed help. So I called Evelyn. She's an old friend, a retired private investigator who used to work with domestic cases. Smart. Discreet. Doesn't blink at bad men. I didn't tell her much. Just sent her the photo and said, I think my daughter's marriage is falling apart and I need to know how deep it goes. She didn't hesitate. Within a week, Evelyn sent me a message he's seeing her every Wednesday, and some Mondays. Apartment rental under a shell name. And he's not just sleeping with her, they're making plans. Attached were time-stamped photos, text messages, screenshots from surveillance cams in the apartment parking garage. Vanessa had been around for over 6 months. Jason paid for the apartment using a hidden account. Cash withdrawals every other week. He even listed it as a satellite office on a phony LLC. But the worst part? In one of the messages Evelyn recovered, Jason wrote, "Just a little longer. I can't leave yet. If I walk too fast, she'll take the kids." He meant Lily. He was waiting, buying time, playing family man while preparing to disappear. With Vanessa. And maybe, without a trace. I sat with that information for days. It made my bones ache. Because it wasn't just betrayal. It was strategy. He was planning to erase her. To paint her as unstable. To take the boys. To leave Lily with nothing but confusion and shame. But I wasn't confused. And I wasn't ashamed. I was ready. One night after the boys went to sleep, I found Lily sitting at the dining table staring into her tea. She didn't look up when I sat beside her. She whispered, "Mom, if Jason ever left me, do you think I'd survive it?" I took her hand and said nothing for a moment. Then I answered, "I think you'd survive. But I don't think he's planning to leave." She blinked, surprised. "What do you mean I think he's planning to erase?" She stared at me, and for the first time she saw it. The fire behind my calm. "Come with me," I said. I brought her to my room, opened the folder Evelyn had sent me, and placed it in front of her. She opened it. At first she was quiet. Then she started to shake. She read the messages. Saw the photos. Her eyes filled, but no tears fell. "He lied to me," she whispered. "He built a whole life around a lie." I held her as her world collapsed, and I promised her in that moment that I would help her rebuild it. Better. Stronger. Without him. There's a sound I'll never forget. Not crying, not yelling, but the sound of someone unraveling quietly. Lily didn't scream when she saw the photos. She didn't throw the papers across the room or tear them up in rage. She just sat there. She looked like a statue crumbling from the inside out, still beautiful, still whole, but you could almost hear the fractures forming beneath the surface. "I need air," she whispered. She walked out to the porch barefoot, still holding one of the printed messages in her hand like a torn love letter. I followed her after a moment, wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, but said nothing. Let her breathe. Let her feel it. It's the only way you survive betrayal. You have to let it sink its teeth in before you rip it out. "I thought I was crazy," she finally said. Her voice was small but steady. "For months I thought it was me. I thought maybe I wasn't enough anymore. That maybe I'd just become boring." I closed my eyes. It's the oldest story in the book. The woman always blames herself first. I told myself he was just tired. That I needed to try harder. Be more understanding. Less emotional. She laughed bitterly. "I even convinced myself that maybe men just go through things, like midlife detachment or some bullshit stage." Then her voice turned cold. "But this? He planned this. He made me doubt myself while he was building a life with someone else." I nodded. "Yes, he did. And I'm so sorry." She turned to me, her face filled with something new, not grief, but fury. "I want to confront him," she said. "Right now. I put my hand on hers. Not yet. Her brow furrowed. If you go at him now in your anger, he'll turn it against you. He'll say you're unstable, emotional. He'll twist the truth and make you look like the villain. She was quiet again. I've seen men like this, Lily. They don't just cheat. They curate their exits. They build a narrative long before they walk away, one that protects them and destroys you. So what do I do? She asked, trembling. We gather everything I said. And then, you look him in the eye and take your power back, not with tears, but with facts. For the next few days, Lily functioned like a ghost. She went through the motions, fed the boys, folded laundry, smiled at the neighbors, but behind her eyes was a storm. Jason noticed something. I could tell. He started getting more affectionate, a hand on her back, a kiss on the cheek, forced jokes at the dinner table. The way you pet a dog you're about to abandon. One night he brought home wine and takeout. Her favorite Thai place. Just wanted to surprise you, he said, voice. Honey slicked. Lily stared at him dead-eyed. Why? Jason blinked. What do you mean? Why now? He smiled nervously. Just felt like we've been distant lately. She tilted her head. Why do you think that is? There it was, the edge, the subtle challenge. Jason pulled back slightly, sensing a shift. I don't know, he said carefully. Work's been hard. I think we've both been under stress. Lily stood slowly, walked to the sink, and said over her shoulder, Did Vanessa help with your stress? Silence. I was in the hallway, not spying, but I didn't move, didn't breathe. Jason laughed softly. Who? Vanessa, Lily said again. The woman you take to lunch on Wednesdays. The one with the apartment downtown. More silence. Then his voice, low, measured. Lily, what are you talking about? I've seen the photos, she said. I know about the shell account, the fake LLC, the messages. Still, Jason didn't raise his voice. Someone's been feeding you lies, he said. You've always had a vivid imagination. Lily turned around slowly, eyes sharp. It's not my imagination that signed the apartment lease in your friend's name. Or the phone records I pulled. He crossed his arms. You went through my things? No, I said, stepping into view. I did. He stared at me. I had never inserted myself into one of their arguments before. But this wasn't an argument. This was a reckoning. I went through your phone, I said, voice calm. I followed you. I hired someone to document your lies. And if you so much as raise your voice to my daughter, I will make sure everything you've built comes crashing down in public court. Jason's face darkened. You've got nothing. I have enough, I said. And I'm not the one who'll be judged when this goes to court. Lily's voice came in then, cold as glass. I want you out of this house. Tonight. Jason scoffed. You can't just... I can, she said. And if you fight me, I'll release everything to your clients. Every photo, every text, every document. He looked at her. Really looked at her. And saw that she wasn't bluffing. He grabbed his keys. Didn't pack a bag. Just walked out. The door slammed. And for the first time in months, the house exhaled. Lily collapsed into my arms. She didn't cry. She just whispered, I didn't think I had that in me. I kissed her forehead. You did, I said. You just forgot for a while. She looked up. What now? Now, I said, we protect the boys. We lawyer up. And we prepare for the storm he's about to bring. Because men like Jason don't go quietly. And I wasn't going to let him take one more piece of her life without a fight. After Jason left, the house felt like a deflated balloon, not broken, but emptied of something toxic. The boys asked where their father had gone. Lily said he was traveling for work. A lie, yes, but a soft one. The kind you use to buy time, not cover truth. Lily barely ate. She moved through the rooms like she was rearranging furniture inside her soul. She started whispering to herself, not in a frantic way, but like she was rehearsing a version of herself she hadn't spoken to in years. I watched. I kept the house afloat. I made breakfast, walked the boys to school, folded laundry just to give my hands something to do. But I knew this wasn't enough. We were at the start of something far bigger than heartbreak. Jason wasn't gone, not really. He was gathering, plotting. People like him don't vanish. They regroup. That's when I reached out to someone I hadn't seen in nearly a decade, Dr. Marion Feldman, a therapist I used to refer troubled parents to when I was a principal. Brilliant, sharp, specializes in narcissistic behavior and high-conflict divorces. I told her I needed a favor. She invited me to tea. Her office hadn't changed, soft gray walls, a window that let in afternoon light like forgiveness. I handed her a folder. She read in silence, photos, messages, financial records. Her eyes didn't widen. She didn't gasp. This was her world. When she looked up, her voice was gentle but firm. "He's dangerous." "I know," I said. "I don't mean violent," she added. "I mean strategic. Men like this don't rage, they erase. They rewrite history, manipulate perception, weaponize empathy." I swallowed hard. "She's going to need more than proof," Dr. Feldman said. "She's going to need witnesses, a therapist, a lawyer trained in coercive control cases. And she needs to document everything starting now." I nodded, taking notes. "What about custody?" I asked. She leaned forward. "If he gets ahead of her, paints her as irrational, overprotective, emotional, it's possible he'll ask for primary custody." My hands curled into fists. "But he doesn't even want the boys," I said. "Not really. He doesn't want them," she said. "He wants to win them." That sentence chilled me. It wasn't about love. It was about leverage. If she tries to be nice, she warned, if she gives him the benefit of the doubt, it will backfire. He will use her mercy as his weapon. I sat back. This wasn't just a divorce. This was war. That evening, I told Lily everything. She was sitting on the porch barefoot again, a blanket around her shoulders like armor. "I spoke to someone," I said. "A therapist. An expert." Lily didn't even blink. "What did she say?" "That this is going to get worse before it gets better. That he's going to try and take the boys. And that we need to move first." Lily closed her eyes. "I can't lose them," she whispered. "I can't." "You won't," I said. "Not if we act now." For the first time in days, I saw resolve spark behind her exhaustion. "Then tell me what to do," she said, "and I'll do it." We began that night. We set up a digital folder, every message, voicemail, calendar, inconsistency, bank transaction. I showed her how to use an encrypted backup. We bought a cheap burner phone and started logging everything, dates, behaviors, patterns of gaslighting. Lily contacted Dr. Feldman. She started therapy the next morning. She also called a lawyer, a woman named Saria Patel, who specialized in high-conflict separations and maternal custody defense. Within 48 hours, we had a team. Jason, of course, made his move. He called 2 days later casually. "Hey, babe," he said. "I've been thinking, maybe we should take a little time apart. Clear our heads. Do this the right way." Lily, coached by Dr. Feldman, remained calm. "That sounds fair," she said. He hesitated. "And maybe I should take the boys for a bit. Give you time to breathe. You seem overwhelmed." It was the first knife. But Lily didn't flinch. "Actually," she said, "I've been working with a therapist. We've agreed the boys should stay in a consistent environment for now." Another pause. Then his voice shifted, a fraction colder. "You don't think I'd take care of them?" "I think you're busy," she replied, "and they need stability." Silence. Then, "You're going to regret this." Click. She looked at me, pale but composed. "I didn't shake," she whispered. "I actually didn't shake." I squeezed her hand. "You're becoming someone he can't predict." And that more than anything terrified him. It happened in the cereal aisle. I was reaching for the boys' favorite brand, the kind with too much sugar, and a cartoon dinosaur on the box, when a voice behind me said, "Excuse me." Are you Jason's mother-in-law? I turned startled. She was tall, probably mid-30s with striking features and a worn expression. Not tired worn, like she'd lived through a storm that never quite let up. I nodded slowly. Yes. Do I know you? She offered a sad smile. No, but I knew him. I studied her more closely, and then I saw it something haunted in her eyes, the way her shoulders curled inward, the way she braced herself before speaking again. I'm Eva, she said. I dated Jason. Years ago, before he married your daughter. I didn't respond, just waited. Let her fill the space. I wasn't sure if I should say anything, but when I saw your face in the paper, she hesitated. I looked you up. I can't stay quiet. My stomach tightened. Why now? She lowered her gaze. Because I know what he's capable of. We moved to a quiet corner of the store next to a display of holiday-themed paper towels. She told me everything. How she met Jason when they worked together at a real estate firm. How charming he was. Thoughtful, attentive. He said all the right things, remembered the smallest details, made her feel like the only woman in the world. But then it shifted. She said, voice tightening. Slowly. At first he'd disappear for hours. Then he started turning things around on me. If I was upset, he'd say I was being irrational. If I cried, he'd call me manipulative. She paused. Then he started planting things, receipts for restaurants I never went to, lip gloss I didn't wear. He accused me of cheating, gaslighted me, until I started believing I was the problem. My chest ached. And when I finally tried to leave, she continued, he threatened to tell everyone I was unstable. He said no one would believe me, that he'd ruin me socially. Did he? I asked softly. No, but he could have, she said. I left the city, changed jobs, got therapy. But I never forgot the way he turned everything upside down just to stay in control. She looked up at me with trembling eyes. When I saw the article about your daughter, about the separation, I knew. I just knew. And I couldn't let her go through it alone. I reached for her hand. Thank you, I said. You don't know how much this means. She nodded. Then after a pause, she added, there's something else. My heart paused. What, he's done this before. Not just to me. There was another woman, Amanda. I never met her, but I heard whispers. She left town suddenly. Rumors said Jason filed a restraining order. Claimed she was unstable. My breath caught. Do you know where she is? Ava shook her head. No. But if you find her, she'll have a story. I'm sure of it. We exchanged numbers. Hugged briefly in the awkward aisle between cleaning supplies and canned peaches. Then I walked out of that store feeling both terrified and validated. Jason wasn't just unfaithful. He was a pattern. A man who rehearsed deception. Who left behind a trail of quietly broken women and walked away clean every time. Not this time. When I got home, I told Lily everything. She sat on the floor, legs folded under her eyes wide. He's done this before, she asked, voice barely above a whisper. I nodded. And if we find this Amanda, we may be able to prove this is his pattern. Not just infidelity, but emotional sabotage, psychological abuse. She looked down at her hands. I spent 10 years with him, she said. And I thought I knew him. You knew what he wanted you to see, I said gently. Not who he really was. That night, Lily opened a blank document and titled it, The Truth About Jason. She began writing. Every memory, every manipulation, every lie. I watched from the hallway, and for the first time in weeks, she didn't look scared. She looked ready. There's something deeply unsettling about knowing someone under your roof is living a double life. You begin questioning everything, every word, every glance, every silence. Was that kindness or a cover? Was that smile for you or just another performance? I knew Jason was hiding more. The man had too many routines, too many habits designed to look innocent. He never let his phone out of sight. Not once. Not even when he was asleep. That's what gave me the idea. Because no one guards a device like that unless it holds something worth guarding. I began watching for patterns. He had a habit of working late from his car, sitting in the driveway, engine off on his phone for long stretches of time. Sometimes he'd pretend to be on a call. Sometimes he'd pretend to be scrolling. But I knew better. One Friday afternoon, I got lucky. He came home unexpectedly to grab something he forgot. Rushed inside, keys, jangling briefcase under arm, and in his urgency left the car door unlocked. I waited until he was upstairs. Then I slipped outside. Quietly opened the car door. And there it was in the center console beneath a stack of insurance forms, a second phone. No lock screen. No password. Just a black rectangle of secrets waiting to spill. I hesitated. Then I picked it up and went back inside straight to the guest bathroom, where I locked the door and turned the fan on. I sat on the closed toilet, heart pounding, and turned it on. Messages flooded the screen. And what I saw chilled me to the bone. Text threads with Vanessa. Hundreds of them. But not just romantic fluff. No, these were tactical. Coordinated, controlled. Start planting doubt. She needs to feel off balance. Mention how tired she looks. Slowly wear down her confidence. If she pushes back, pull away. Make her think she's overreacting. It wasn't just cheating, it was psychological conditioning. There were also folders of photos. Screenshots of Lily's social media cropped and labeled. Notes about her moods. Even a voice recording a private therapy session she'd told Jason about, which he must have secretly accessed. And then, there was a conversation thread with an unknown number, labeled only M. The messages were cold. We'll need her signature by the end of the month. If she resists, threaten to go for full custody. Frame it as concern for the children. Courts love a caring father. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was premeditated destruction. I took photos of everything. Every thread. Every file. Every date and timestamp. I copied them to a secure folder in my cloud. Then I turned the phone off, wiped the prints, and placed it back exactly where I found it. By the time Jason returned downstairs, I was sitting calmly at the kitchen table with the boys, helping them with math homework. He kissed them on the head, smiled at me. "Everything good, Margaret?" I smiled back. "Couldn't be better." That night, I shared it all with Lily. She didn't cry. Not this time. She just sat still for a long time, reading every message, every cruel little strategy. And then she whispered, "He was planning to erase me." "Yes," I said softly. "But now we erase him." The next day, we met with her lawyer. Saria Patel reviewed the files, her face unreadable. When she was finished, she said, "This changes everything." She began drafting a motion to protect custody, freeze joint accounts, and request an emergency evaluation. "Don't worry," she said. "He wanted a performance. He's about to get one in court." That weekend, Jason sent Lily a message. "Hope we can talk soon. I still believe we can handle this peacefully." It was almost funny. He still thought he was ahead. Still believed we were playing checkers while he played chess. But what he didn't know, what men like him never imagine, is that when women stop begging for clarity and start gathering truth, we don't just leave. We burn the blueprint. Jason always thought he was clever. Not just clever, untouchable. He played people like chess pieces, always 5 moves ahead, always pretending to be someone more generous, more patient, more wounded than he truly was. And for a while, he had us fooled. He wore the perfect disguise, the loving husband, the attentive father, the charming son-in-law. But masks slip. And when they do, it's not loud. It's quiet, like paper tearing or a breath held too long. After weeks of gathering evidence, testimonies, documents, photos, after uncovering his double life, and hearing stories from women he'd broken before I knew we were close to the end. But we needed one more thing: his voice, saying the words out loud. That was the final bullet. Paper can be denied, texts can be called fake, but once you speak a lie, it lives forever. It started with a simple idea, something Dr. Feldman suggested during one of Lily's therapy sessions. Get him to talk. Ask no questions. Let him fill the silence. She was right. Men like Jason can't help themselves. So we planned the conversation. Lily invited him to the house for a civil discussion. She told him she needed clarity before lawyers got involved, a word that would draw him in like a moth to flame. Jason hated lawyers unless he controlled them. The thought of Lily acting first would agitate his pride just enough to make him show up. Don't bait him, I reminded Lily as we reviewed the plan the night before. He'll twist it. He'll say you're being emotional. Let him think he's still in charge. She nodded, calm, steely. Her eyes, once clouded with doubt, now held something dangerous focus. The next day, Jason arrived. He wore a sweater that looked like it belonged in a fatherhood commercial. His hair was neatly combed, his jaw freshly shaved, the picture of the well-meaning husband trying to make things right. He even brought flowers. Lily didn't take them. He shrugged, set them on the kitchen counter, and gave her a practiced smile. I'm really glad we're doing this, he said, walking into the living room. What he didn't notice, what I made sure of, was the tiny recording device I'd hidden inside a decorative ceramic bowl on the console table. It looked like nothing, a home accessory among keys, receipts, and unopened mail. But it was about to become the centerpiece of our case. I took the boys to the park like I said I would. But I didn't go far. I sat in the car at the corner of the street, watching the time crawl and feeling my heart pound harder with every passing minute. Lily's text came at 1:43 p.m. He's gone. I returned home. Her hands were clenched, her breath shallow. But her eyes were glassy with something close to triumph. She handed me the recorder. We sat at the kitchen table and played it together. At first, the conversation was exactly what I expected: carefully, neutral, purposefully vague. Jason's voice calm and measured. We were just growing apart. Lil, I didn't want it to be messy. I thought if we both kept our cool, we could, transition through this. Transition. He used the word like they were roommates splitting a lease. Lily's voice was quiet, even beautifully blank. So the apartment, the messages, the second phone. That wasn't messy. There was a pause, a long one. Then Jason's voice again, slightly less composed. You weren't supposed to find those. There it was. The first crack in his armor. Lily didn't rush him. She just let the silence breathe like Dr. Feldman taught her. Then she said, "Why did you need the boys?" Another pause. This one tighter, more dangerous. Then Jason answered, and I'll never forget the words. Because they make you look stable. They're your shield. But if I have them, people listen to me. They sympathize. It's basic psychology, Lily. My stomach turned even hearing it secondhand. Not just because it was cruel, but because it was true. He wasn't emotional. He was tactical. Lily stayed calm. You were going to take them from me. Not forever, he said. Just long enough to make you sign. Sign what another beat. Then his voice dropped lower, the kind of tone men use when they're no longer pretending to be good. The house. The account. I've worked too hard to give it up in a divorce just because you had a breakdown. He laughed. Not loudly, just a huff of breath, like he was amused by her surprise. You should be thanking me. I could have left months ago. I stayed for you. I had to stop the recording for a moment. My hands were shaking. Lily sat in silence, tears rolling silently down her cheeks. But not because she was broken. Because she was finished mourning. Because this was the final stone placed on the grave of who she thought Jason was. And now she was ready to bury him legally, emotionally, financially. We played the rest. More lies, more justifications, more attempts to blur guilt. But none of it mattered. We had the evidence. His voice. His plan. His intent to manipulate custody. Coerce her into forfeiting assets. Frame her as unstable. It was no longer hearsay. It was proof. We sent the file to Saria Lily's attorney. Within hours, she called back. "This is explosive," she said. "It confirms everything we've alleged and then some." She moved fast, filed motions to request a full psychological custody review, freeze joint assets immediately, block Jason from unsupervised access to the children, submit audio evidence as supporting material for coercive control. She also drafted a public statement in case Jason tried to weaponize social perception, because men like Jason often pivot when cornered from abuser to victim. But not this time. 2 days later, we were granted an emergency hearing. The judge listened to the tape in private chambers. 10 minutes. That's all it took. 10 minutes to turn Jason from a misunderstood husband into a manipulative threat. Temporary orders were issued. No contact with Lily except through legal counsel. No visitation with the children without court-ordered evaluation. Mandatory disclosure of all financial accounts, business dealings, and property. Jason, of course, exploded. He left voicemail after voicemail, the kind that spiraled from charm to rage in the same breath. "We were supposed to handle this privately. You're ruining my reputation. You let your mother poison you against me. Then the one that made my skin crawl. You think this is over? You think I won't fight for what's mine?" Lily forwarded them to Saria, who forwarded them to the judge. A restraining order followed. That night, Lily sat beside me on the back porch. The rain had started slow and steady, a soft rhythm tapping the wooden rails. She was curled under a blanket, tea in her hands. But she didn't look tired. She looked still. "I thought I'd feel better," she whispered. "But all I feel is empty." "That's normal," I said. "He didn't just lie. He took something sacred and made it strategic. You're mourning the life you gave him." She nodded. "I keep wondering if I missed the signs, if there was something I should have seen sooner." I looked at her not with judgment but with tenderness. "You saw exactly what he wanted you to see, and when you stopped seeing it, when the truth came through, you acted. That's more than most women ever get to do." She looked away, then back again. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." I didn't say you're welcome. I said, "We're not done yet." Because Jason hadn't truly fallen. Not yet. But he would. And when he did, it would be in his own words. Some traps are loud, violent things sprung with fury, lit with fire. But others are silent, designed with care, placed with precision, like a single crack in a perfect glass, invisible, until pressure finds it. That's the kind of trap I set for Jason. Not with rage, but with silence. It started with an invitation. Not from me, not from Lily, from the boys. We helped them write it, a sweet little card that said, "Daddy, will you come to dinner with us?" It was written in crayon, signed with hearts. Honest. We knew Jason wouldn't say no. Not to them. Not to a moment that made him look good. His ego wouldn't allow it. He replied in minutes. "Of course. Looking forward to it." We planned everything carefully. A warm, neutral meal. No tension in the lighting. Casual clothing. I made sure the boys would be present for the start. Their innocence would keep Jason on his best behavior, at least for a while. But the real twist, I invited a guest. Her name was Eva, the woman from the grocery store. Jason's ex. And she wasn't the only one. Through some light social digging and the help of our attorney's private network, I tracked down the second woman Eva had mentioned. Amanda. She had moved out of state after Jason tried to frame her as mentally unstable. But when she heard what he'd done to Lily, she agreed to speak. Both women. at the same table, alongside my daughter and her sons. Jason had no idea. The night began as expected. He showed up dressed casually, carrying a bottle of wine and store-bought cookies, the kind of gesture meant to look like effort without real sincerity. He greeted the boys with enthusiasm, hugged them too tightly, called Lily kiddo like nothing had happened. She smiled politely, said little. Eva and Amanda were already inside in the den. Jason didn't notice them at first, or maybe he did and dismissed them as acquaintances. It wasn't until dinner was served and they entered the room that I saw it. The flicker. The microsecond of panic in his eyes. Ava sat directly across from him. Amanda beside Lily. Jason's jaw tightened, but he covered it well. "Small world," he said smoothly. "Didn't expect to see you two here." Ava smiled, sharp as glass. "Oh, I never left. I just stopped following your script." Amanda remained quiet, but her eyes locked on his like steel. The boys giggled at their spaghetti. They had no idea they were sitting in the middle of a reckoning. The first 20 minutes were cordial, surface level. Lily asked about school activities. Jason responded with pretend interest. I poured wine-served bread, filled silence with warm hostess behavior. Then, when the boys had finished eating, I led them upstairs to their room where I'd already set up a movie and popcorn. Lily followed to kiss them goodnight. And then, the door to the real conversation closed. Jason looked around the table. 3 women who knew the truth. 4, counting me. He cleared his throat. "This feels a little planned." "It is," I said. Eva leaned forward. "You always liked being the smartest man in the room, Jason. What's it feel like to finally be the subject of the case study?" He smirked. "Let me guess. You all got together, compared notes." Amanda's voice was calm. "Not notes. Patterns." She reached into her purse and pulled out a single sheet of paper, a list of dates and phrases. "These were the exact words you used when you told me I was losing touch with reality." Eva added, "And those are the dates you said you were out of town, but were seen with me." Jason chuckled. "This is ridiculous. You're dragging up the past to what humiliate me." Lily finally spoke. "To show a judge that what you did to me wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a pattern. A playbook." Jason turned to her, the mask slipping just slightly. "You're really going to air our personal problems in front of strangers?" Eva's voice sharpened. "You said the same thing to me right before you called my boss and claimed I'd been stealing time from the company." Amanda's hands trembled slightly as she spoke. "You destroyed my job. My friends. You told people I was dangerous. But I kept records, Jason. And now someone actually believes me." Jason's smile cracked. "This is pathetic." "No," I said softly. "What's pathetic is how long you've gotten away with this." He turned to me, sneering. "Of course. Margaret the martyr. The perfect mother-in-law. Always looking down your nose." I didn't blink. "No. Just finally seeing you clearly." He stood up suddenly. "You're all insane." Lily remained seated. "That's what you want people to believe. That we're unhinged. That we're emotional. That you're the calm one." Jason pointed at the women across the table. "They're not part of this marriage." "No," Lily said. "But they are part of your legacy." He looked ready to explode. So I dropped the final blow. I pulled out a flash drive from my pocket. "This contains audio of our last conversation," I said. "The one where you outlined how you'd take the boys, use them to control Lily, and make her sign over everything." Jason froze. "And it's already been filed in court," I added. He blinked rapidly. "You can't." "I did," Lily said. "And the judge granted full temporary custody. No visitation, no contact. You're bluffing." "Try me." Saria's voice came from the hallway. Jason turned. Our lawyer stepped into view, clipboard in hand. She walked in calmly, approached the table, and placed an envelope beside him. "These are the court orders," she said. You're to have no contact with the children until a psychological evaluation is completed. Financials are frozen. If you attempt to harass or coerce my client, we will pursue criminal charges. Jason looked around. Cornered. Outnumbered. Finally exposed. He tried to laugh, the dry, arrogant chuckle of a man whose power had evaporated before he noticed. "You'll regret this," he said quietly. "No," Lily said. "I regret waiting this long." Jason didn't slam the door when he left. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't flip a chair. He walked out like a man walking through smoke, thinking he still had time to outrun the fire. We sat in silence for a few minutes. Then Eva reached for Lily's hand. "I wish I'd had the strength you have." Lily shook her head. "I only found it because he took everything else." Amanda whispered, "I hope this frees you." Lily looked up at all of us. "It does. And I hope it frees you too." The women stayed late, talked, laughed softly. We shared a pie none of us had appetite for, and when they left, Lily turned to me and said, "He can't hurt me anymore." I smiled. "He won't. That part of your life is over." And as the house went quiet, I realized something. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's exposure. Letting someone's truth walk into the light, and watching them shrink in it. You'd think a man like Jason, cornered, exposed, legally outmaneuvered, would retreat, lick his wounds, disappear into silence. But men like Jason don't go quietly. They don't accept defeat. They reframe it. They turn their downfall into a new script where they're the victim, wronged, misunderstood, betrayed by the very people they hurt. And that's exactly what he did next. 2 days after the confrontation dinner, Jason's first retaliation came not through lawyers, but through public image. Lily's phone buzzed at 6:13 a.m. with a screenshot from a friend, Jason's Facebook post. A carefully written statement framed in calm language. "Sometimes marriages fall apart quietly. I've always prioritized peace, especially for our boys, but recent decisions made by others have left me no choice but to share my truth. I ask for privacy as we work through this difficult time for the sake of the children we both love deeply." No names, no direct accusations. But the implication was clear. He was the rational one. Lily was the problem. Comments flooded in, some sympathetic, many vague, "Stay strong, man. Praying for your boys. Hope you can find peace. Kids need both parents, don't let anger win." The post had over 300 likes in a few hours. He was curating his narrative again, not in court, but in the court of public opinion. And it worked. Lily received texts from mutual friends. "Is everything okay? I had no idea it was that bad between you two. Why didn't you say something sooner?" She stared at her phone for a long time. "He's turning it around again," she said quietly. "He's already poisoning the ground." I placed my hand over hers. "Let him talk," I said. "We have the truth, and the court doesn't read Facebook." But that wasn't all. The second attack came in the form of a motion for emergency joint custody. Filed just 2 days after he was served restrictions, Jason claimed Lily was influenced by her controlling mother. The home was emotionally unstable. The children expressed fear when left alone with her. It was a stunning accusation. Blatant lies. But his filing was strategic, meant to rattle Lily, put her on defense, and portray her as hysterical. Saria read the motion and sighed. "This isn't a legal strategy, it's a smear campaign." "But can he win?" Lily asked, her voice cracking. "No," Saria said calmly. "Because we have documentation, witnesses, audio, and a court order already in place. This is a panic move." Still, the damage of reading it, seeing your name attached to phrases like "emotionally volatile" and "unfit mother," carved a wound. That night, Lily cried, not like a woman grieving, but like a woman insulted. "He's using my love for those boys as a weapon," she said. "He's trying to make me look unhinged just because I finally said no." I held her tightly. "Then we fight him. Every lie, every page. With truth." The custody hearing was set for the following week. In the meantime, Jason's attorney, an expensive man with slick hair and no discernible conscience, filed requests for home evaluations, therapist notes, and school performance records for the children. All meant to delay, all meant to drain energy. But they underestimated Lily. She cooperated with everything, let the evaluator into her home, showed every report card, every pediatric record, every therapy bill for the boys' well-being. Dr. Feldman submitted a formal psychological report on Jason's manipulation patterns. Saria submitted the audio recording again, this time with timestamps and annotated commentary. Jason didn't see it coming. He thought we'd break. Instead, we sharpened. On the morning of the hearing, Lily stood in front of the mirror in a navy blue blouse, hair tied back, minimal makeup. Strong, clear-eyed. "You look calm," I said. "I am calm," she replied, "because I'm done performing." We walked into the courtroom like warriors. Jason was already seated at the front table, dressed like a grieving widower, dark suit, tired face, supportive friend at his side. His lawyer tried to establish a tone of reason. He spoke of Jason's pain, of parental alienation, of confusion in the children's routines. But the judge, a woman in her 60s with a no-nonsense voice, interrupted him after 5 minutes. "I've read the filings. Let's get to the matter at hand," she said. "Ms. Patel, proceed." Saria stood calm as ever, and then she played the recording. The room went silent. Jason's voice echoed through the chamber, calm at first, then cruel. His words about taking the children, using them, making Lily sign over her future. Every word landed like a hammer. When the audio stopped, the judge didn't say a thing for a full 15 seconds. Then she turned to Jason. "Do you dispute the authenticity of this recording?" His lawyer tried to object. Denied nothing, just claimed emotional context had been lost. The judge didn't buy it. "In my courtroom, we value intentions, not excuses," she said. "And Mr. Holloway, your intentions were clear." She turned to Lily. "You've demonstrated grace under pressure. I see no grounds for joint custody at this time. Temporary full custody remains with you. Any change will require psychiatric clearance and sustained compliance." Jason slumped in his chair. Defeated, but not destroyed. Not yet. Outside the courtroom, he followed us to the elevator. "You won't win forever," he hissed at Lily. She didn't turn, didn't flinch. "I don't need to," she said. "Just long enough for the boys to forget what you almost did." He sneered at me. "You always hated me." "No," I said. "I saw you. There's a difference." The elevator opened, we stepped in, and the doors closed on his face, frozen between anger and disbelief. In the weeks that followed, Jason began unraveling. His firm dropped him. Word of the court recording spread discreetly but effectively. He moved in with a friend, sold his car, filed motions to delay payments, claimed financial hardship. He tried to request visitation again. It was denied. Dr. Feldman's reports were airtight. The judge didn't budge. Meanwhile, Lily flourished. She cooked again, laughed again, took the boys to the park without looking over her shoulder. One afternoon, I walked into her kitchen and saw her dancing with them, barefoot, music playing, sun pouring through the windows. They weren't surviving anymore. They were living. One evening, just before bedtime, her oldest son asked me, "Nana, is Daddy coming back?" I knelt beside him and said, "Not right now, sweetheart." Why, I paused, then said the only thing that felt right. Because sometimes people don't know how to love safely, and it's our job to protect the people we do love until they learn how. He nodded slowly. "Okay." And that was enough. You'd think a man would stop after the courts turned against him. After his own voice, buried him in front of a judge. After he lost access to his children, his home, and his carefully curated reputation. But Jason wasn't done. Not because he had a chance, but because men like Jason don't need chances, they need attention. They need the fight more than the win. And his next move proved it. The documents arrived quietly. A white envelope slid into the mailbox like a paper-thin threat. It bore no signature, no return address, just a stamp and an intention. Lily opened it in the kitchen while the boys played with Legos on the living room floor. She didn't react right away, just stared. Then she placed the pages on the table, her face unreadable. "It's a custody claim," she said. Again. I sat down beside her and scanned the filing. This time, Jason wasn't just trying to get joint custody. He wanted primary custody. Claimed Lily was emotionally unstable due to external influence, a clear dig at me. Claimed she had isolated the children from their father without cause. Claimed her extended psychological treatment proved she was not equipped to provide a stable environment. He included select excerpts taken out of context from her therapy notes. Notes she had once shared with him before everything fell apart. He even attached a statement from his own mother testifying that Lily lacked warmth and never made Jason feel truly welcome in his own home. The irony nearly made me laugh. But Lily didn't laugh. She read every line in silence. When she was done, she stood up and went into her bedroom. I gave her space. That night, she came out holding a shoebox. Inside a bundle of old letters, photographs, and receipts. I kept everything she said. Every time he mocked me. Every time he canceled on the boys. Every birthday he forgot. I saved it. All of it. Her hands trembled slightly, but not from fear, from focus. "I thought I was just holding on to pain," she whispered. "Turns out I was gathering evidence." We delivered the shoebox to Saria the next morning, and that's when I told them both what I hadn't told anyone yet. "There's something else," I said. "Something I didn't think would matter until now." Lily and Saria turned to me, eyebrows raised. I opened my phone and pulled up a photograph, old, blurry, dated. It showed Jason, at least 15 years younger, standing outside a downtown bar. His arm around a girl barely out of her teens, pale, thin, clearly intoxicated. It wasn't illegal, but it looked wrong. Because it was. I'd been keeping it for years, something I found back when I first had doubts about Jason. Back when he was still new to our family, still so good at pretending. I never acted on it. I had no proof of wrongdoing. Just a gut feeling that the man had layers no one wanted to peel. But now I also had Eva's story, Amanda's story, Lily's story, and something else. An anonymous message in my inbox, someone claiming to be Jason's ex-colleague, saying he had once settled quietly out of court after a former intern accused him of coercion. "I can get the NDA," the message read, "but I won't go public unless there's a real reason." Now, there was a reason. Saria made a call, and by the next day we had a copy of the NDA. The intern had been 23. Jason had been her superior. They'd had a consensual relationship until she attempted to end it, and he threatened to destroy her reputation if she spoke. She filed a complaint. The company hushed it, paid her a settlement, silenced her. But the file remained in their records. And with the help of our investigator, we got it sanitized, but real. Enough to establish a pattern of control, of grooming, of retaliating against women who said no. Saria built the response to his custody filing like a fortress. She didn't just defend Lily's fitness as a mother, she dismantled Jason's character piece by piece. She submitted the NDA, the old photo, Ava's testimony, Amanda's sworn statement, screenshots of Jason's financial manipulation, the full therapy timeline to show Lily's recovery, not instability. And then she dropped the final card, intent to subpoena Jason's former employer if the custody claim proceeded. It was a warning shot, and it hit. Jason's lawyer called a meeting. He looked like a man who'd aged 10 years in 10 days. "This is getting unnecessarily aggressive," he said, trying to regain control. "We believe both parties should consider the children's best interest." Saria leaned forward. "We are. That's why we're keeping them with their mother and away from a man who used psychological warfare as a marital strategy." The lawyer blanched. Jason didn't say a word. Not until we stood to leave. Then softly, like a plea disguised as arrogance, "You're ruining my life." Lily turned to him. "No," she said. "You did that when you tried to ruin mine." The hearing was short. Jason's request for custody was denied without ceremony. The judge's voice was cold. "Mr. Holloway, this court is concerned by your pattern of behavior past and present. Your actions demonstrate an inability to act in the best interest of your children. Your filing is not only denied but flagged for potential retaliatory abuse of process." The gavel fell. Lily didn't smile. She exhaled slow, long final. Outside in the open air, she turned to me. "Why do they always push it so far?" she asked. "Because they don't believe we'll push back," I said. "Until we do." That evening, she sat with the boys on the floor helping them build a cardboard castle. They asked if Daddy would be back soon. She didn't lie. She said, "Not for a while. But you're safe. That's what matters." They nodded, went back to taping towers, and I watched her, my daughter, not broken, not bitter, but strong. Not just a survivor, a protector, a mother in full. I always believed justice should be quiet, but Jason taught me that sometimes justice needs to echo. Not for drama, not for applause, but because some men only understand consequences when the silence they weaponize turns against them. So in the weeks after the custody hearing, after Lily's name was cleared and Jason's mask cracked publicly, I made one final choice. I was going to dismantle what he cared about most, his image. Jason had built his reputation like a fortress. Not as a loving father, no, that was just stage dressing. He cared about status, power, prestige. His carefully curated online presence, his name on charity boards, his reputation at networking events where he was known as one of the good guys. And now we had a collection of receipts that said otherwise. We didn't go viral. We didn't blast it across social media. We went smarter. Through Sarya's connections, we initiated professional reviews, quiet emails to the state board about his behavior with former employees, whispered concerns to HR at his company, a discreet contact with a journalist who specialized in white-collar misconduct. Not scandal, not gossip. Patterns, documents, timelines. Because if there's one thing people in suits fear more than morality, it's liability. A week later, Jason was put on administrative leave. 2 weeks after that, the nonprofit he sat on asked him to step down pending internal review. Then the article came out. A short piece. Nothing inflammatory. Just facts. Former marketing executive linked to multiple emotional coercion claims in custody case. It didn't use Lily's name, didn't even mention mine, but it quoted the court transcript, the audio, the NDA, the former intern. It didn't accuse, it revealed. And just like that, the whispers started following him for once. Lily was hesitant at first. She didn't want revenge. She wanted peace. But when she read the article, she said, "It feels like truth finally got a seat at the table." Jason tried to push back, of course. He sent an email to the journalist denying everything, claimed he was being destroyed by a vindictive ex and her mother. The journalist responded with a single line, "We stand by our reporting. If anything was incorrect, feel free to submit legal documentation." He didn't, because he couldn't. Then came the last of it, the audit. Turns out Jason's Shell LLC, the one he used to pay for Vanessa's apartment, wasn't just a front for hiding a relationship. He'd also used it to move money around in questionable ways. Client gifts that were never delivered, services billed twice. The company quietly launched an internal investigation. Jason resigned before they could finish. He spun it as taking time to focus on family, but we knew. He was running out of versions of himself to hide behind. One night, as I stood on Lily's porch watering the plants, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. I let it ring out, but the voicemail came immediately. It was Jason's voice, strained, quiet, bitter. "You win. Are you happy now? You've destroyed everything I built. Everyone looks at me like I'm a monster. I hope you know this won't fix what's broken inside her. She'll still be hollow, still bitter. You think you protected her, but all you did was make her smaller. Then a pause. I wonder if you ever look in the mirror and see what you've become. Delete. No response. No callback. Because what I've become is exactly what I needed to be. A woman who doesn't flinch. A mother who finishes the fight. Lily never heard the voicemail. She didn't need to, because she was rebuilding not out of spite, but out of necessity. She started volunteering at a local women's shelter not to talk about her story, but to listen to others. She enrolled in a grant writing course, picked up freelance work, got her financial independence back piece by piece. One morning, over coffee, she looked at me and said, "Do you think I'll ever love again?" I set my cup down. "I think you'll love differently," I said. "And I think you'll recognize the danger before it knocks." She smiled softly. "I hope so." And then she added, "But if I don't, I'm okay. Just loving me for a while." That's when I knew the war was over. Not because Jason was ruined, but because he didn't matter anymore. The truth has a quiet sound when it finally settles. It's not triumphant. It's not cinematic. It's just still. And that's how it felt the day the boys came home from school, threw their backpacks on the floor, and ran into Lily's arms like she was the safest place in the world. Because she is. Because she chose herself. Because we fought. And because we didn't let a charming man with a cold heart steal the one thing we refused to surrender: our story. The strange thing about endings is, they rarely feel like endings. There's no ribbon, no applause, no big sigh of relief. There's just a quiet morning, a sink full of dishes, a calendar with no court dates, and peace not like a celebration, but like oxygen. It was months after the final hearing when it really sank in. Jason was gone, not just from the house or the courtroom or our inboxes, but from the center of Lily's story. He had been the gravity around which her life orbited for too long. And now, for the first time in a decade, she was free-floating, unsure, unanchored, but unafraid. One night, I sat outside on her porch. The boys were asleep. She brought out 2 mugs of tea. "I thought I'd feel more triumphant," she said softly. I smiled. "That's not what healing feels like." She nodded. "It feels more like I can breathe again." We watched the wind push through the trees. "Sometimes I wonder," she said after a pause, "how close I came to disappearing." I didn't ask what she meant. I already knew. Disappearing wasn't about running away. It was about shrinking. About becoming so small in your own life that you no longer recognize the sound of your own voice. She sipped her tea and added, "I spent so long trying to make the lie work. I almost forgot who I was before it." That's what men like Jason do best. They don't just cheat on you. They hollow you out. They make you question your instincts, erase your boundaries, rewrite your memories until your love for them becomes a weapon used against you. But the story didn't end that way. Because Lily didn't just survive him. She outgrew him. She changed the locks. Changed her last name back. Changed the way she looked in mirrors, not checking for flaws, but for clarity. She restructured her days around joy, not fear. She planted herbs in her kitchen window. She danced barefoot with her boys. She slept deeply, peacefully, without wondering what was being hidden from her in the dark. And one day she looked at me and said, "I don't think I need to forgive him." I nodded. "You don't." "Because it's not about hate," she continued. "It's just, I don't owe him anything. Not even that." And she was right. Forgiveness wasn't the closure she needed. The distance was. The silence between her and the chaos. The space she filled with her own breath, her own voice, her own strength. As for Jason, he faded. His career didn't bounce back. His version of events grew stale. Too many people had heard the recording. Too many of his own lies had become too hard to defend. Eventually, he moved cities, tried to start over. But reputation is a ghost that follows you when you've built it on shadows. We never heard from him again. And that was a gift we didn't ask for but deserved. I often think about the day I first noticed something. The glance at that dinner party, the too expensive perfume, the scarf that didn't belong. It would have been easy to look away, to say nothing, to respect the boundaries of a marriage I didn't live inside. But love, real love, doesn't always mean staying out of it. Sometimes it means stepping in. Sometimes it means risking your child's heartbreak to save her from destruction. Sometimes it means becoming the one person willing to see the truth no matter how painful it is. And that's what I did. Not because I'm brave, but because silence would have cost her everything. To every woman who's listening, if something feels wrong, it probably is. If your gut whispers this doesn't add up, believe it. If you feel invisible, isolated, diminished, that's not love. That's strategy. That's control. You are not too sensitive. You are not imagining things. You are not the problem. You are the threat to the lie. And you are not alone. Not anymore. So if you've ever doubted your worth because someone convinced you to, if you've ever given years to someone who gave you gaslighting in return, if you've ever stood in the wreckage of your love story and wondered, was it all a performance? Know this. You can start over. You can reclaim your name, your voice, your life. You can raise children in a home without secrets. You can dance again, smile again, sleep again. And you can rise. Maybe not all at once. Maybe not today. But eventually. Because truth always rises. And so do we. Thank you for listening to our story. If you've lived through something like this, or if you're still in the middle of it, I see you. And I hope you'll share your story in the comments. Not for sympathy, but for someone else who needs to hear they're not crazy. They're just waking up.